The ninth edition of Gender Bender. We are very, very happy this evening to have a friend, a theatre friend, a collaborator, playwright, performer, Sapan Saran. It's our pleasure to have the Bangalore launch of her book of 3 plays, Ottam or Anya Natak. The plays are in Hindi. They will be translated at some point very soon, I think. But the conversation will be in English. So we'll have the book release and a conversation between, again, a friend and a very well-known sports writer and journalist, Sharda Ugra. So Sapan and Sharda will be in conversation about the 3 plays, concentrating on Ottam. And we will have some of the actors from Beloved reading excerpts from the play. And then we'll have open house where you can ask questions if you have any questions about the play. So thank you very much for being here. The show is at 7 o'clock, but first we have this conversation. And may I call Sharda to take over and Sapan, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm finding myself in a very unexpected, but at the same time, surprisingly expected space. I had a chance to read the plays, and I have to say that when I read Ottam, as I've told Sapan this morning, that I was absolutely blown away. It's the most original look at Indian sport, and in form of writing and in form of expression that I have read. It is fiction. But it is fact in so many ways. So we just wanted to talk about. Before we sort of dive straight into Ottam, because I'm a sports journalist, I'll just get massively obsessed about it. I just wanted Sapan to just tell us a little bit about the collection of the 3 plays. There's one called Lekha Ki Begum, which is just tops. So go ahead and tell us about the collection of 3 plays, and then we'll just dive into the Ottam conversation.
Sure. So the first play is called Lekha Ki Begum, which is essentially a housewife who nurtures this deep desire to enter her Lekhak husband's intellectual world. Loosely based on seeing what, my mom, my father's a Lekhak, but also several other people who I had also interviewed during a project for National Theatre of Wales at one point. So it's a kind of a fictional story, a monologue around that. The second play is called Sohar. Sohar in Bhojpuri means Janam Din Ka Geet. That is, or kiska janam din, to essentially electricity ka janam din. So the idea is when electricity is born, what is lost or who loses what. So it's a development-induced जो displacement होता है, उसके ऊपर ये नाटक है, and it looks at it from the eyes of a very young girl, Nimni, जो एक Potter family से है. And yeah, so that's the second play. And third is Ottam, which I think Sharda will talk about.
Yeah. So Ottam means the race in Tamil, and as you can see, I read through the play and I said it's the setting to start with. A lot of the scenes are set in a Tamil household, and I'm reading it, and it's just sort of, it's sinking, but there's a sink, but there's not a sink. I'm saying, how come I'm reading a Hindi play, or a play written in Hindi, whose title is a Tamil word, all of the cultural references are Tamil, and at the same time, it belongs to everything that is there in sport. It belongs to the Gender Bender project in a way, because the main character, the protagonist Akai in the story, it's the story of her life told through these scenes, and it covers an entire range from the time she's little to the time we reach the point where stuff happens. And it is again, a lot of it is based on truth. A lot of it is based on what has happened to a lot of Indian women athletes. There is a song there with reference to P.T. Usha, which I think is just utterly beautiful. Again, but it's written in Hindi, but it's for P.T. Usha, and P.T. Usha, will she get the Hindi? She may not. So there's all this is going on. So, and then Sapan told me that, yeah, of course, I'm from Rajasthan, which of course made complete and utter sense at that point. So tell us, Sapan, where did this story come from? Where does this language, this milieu, where did all of this come from? How good is your Tamil, to start with?
Not good. So this is 2015. I'm reading two things at the same time. I'm reading a gender bender call, and I'm reading Duti Chand's case about it and how she won the case. And it's everywhere, right? And that's the first time I actually engage with it properly. Otherwise, you know it at a level of, acha, aisa kuch hota hai. But the whole idea of gender looked upon as a binary, all of these conversations, once one started reading, keeping Duti in mind. And so I think how it worked for me is it became a human story. That became an anchor point to enter a story which was not about gender and yet about gender, but more so about, as I say, it becomes a human entry point for me, that who is to decide whether I'm a woman or not. And when institutionally that power is given to authorities and federations, then it becomes so tangible, so out there. And in sport, like in theater, bodies are visible, are out there for you to dissect. If anybody can look at a body and just keep looking at it and dissect it in various ways. Whereas in theater, I think a body also is capable of becoming invisible in a good way, in the sense that you can be transported to other emotional spaces and so on. In sport, there's no escape. You are there. And so I think that became my entry point more than anything else. And I started reading and reading and reading, and I met lots and lots of people. We can talk about research if you want, but essentially, how did Tamil come into it? I was very touched by Shanti's story, Shanti Soundarajan, who is from Tamil Nadu. So she is an 800-meter runner, and she underwent a gender test, which she failed. And I felt that while Duti Chand's story is going on, and she won the case, and that was quite something, right, at that time. But I felt there's something about Shanti's story which is a life lived. So I felt a deep desire to meet her. And so from there, the research process started. And I've also spent some time in Chennai. I also like multilingual theatre. I mean, in most of our theatre, including today, there'll be several languages, because I feel language has a way to root context in all its specificity. So it just, when you color something with language, you are adding so much to it. So I felt the choice of, in fact, there are scenes in the play which say that ki ye pura scene Tamil mein bhi ho sakta hai. That option is there. So, yeah.
So what Sapan is saying about language is interesting, because there are large chunks of the play that are in English. So it's written in Hindi, and you're reading it. It's English. There are Tamil words. There is the use of. She was talking about just before this. Parai is a musical instrument that is used in Tamil Nadu to play. Tamil Nadu, let me not say Tamil Nadu like these North Indians. So that's used to play in moments of joy and in moments of sadness. So that's also a very strong feature. It's a theme that runs through the whole story. And the use of the parai, of sound, is something that is, where did that come into the story? Was it because it's now got a caste sort of a symbolism with it? Was it because it's now, it connects with, I was going to say Shanti, but Akai's story in that sense? What is the use of the parai and this environment that you've created?
Right. I'll just rewind a little bit and talk about the 2-3 people I interviewed. So I spent time with Shanti Soundarajan for a couple of days.
Just give me 1 second. Shanti Soundarajan won a silver medal in the Asian Games, and that silver medal was stripped away from her because suddenly it was decided that she's not a woman.
So her in Chennai, and then followed her wherever she was going. It was, I think, Mayiladurai, where she was a temporary coach at that point. So the idea was to observe the athlete in their context, what they're doing, following them, chatting with them, laughing with them. It was really at that level, and one had not, I was still figuring out what is it that one wants, what is the story, do they even want to share it, all of those questions. And then I felt, no, this is not enough. I need to meet the family, because there were conversations around that. So I asked her, and then she said, yeah. And then so I went to her village, and I met her mother. And I think that's where it really became real. Like I remember this one moment, जब मैं उनके backyard, जो पीछे का area है गाँव में, where I was told that this is where she used to run. I went there, and the sand was red, and one could. That's what I was I was in that one moment I was able to visualize the play a little bit. But I was also very clear that this is not a story of a person or like a biography or any of those, because as this was going on simultaneously, I was reading. I was also very influenced by Caste Semenya, several others, Catherine Switzer's story. So several very poignant stories. And then I said, okay, let me also speak to Duti. Meanwhile, I got in touch with Payoshni, who's a advocate for athletes' rights, and helped Duti actually win the case. So I met Duti Chand at the Gopi Chand Academy in Hyderabad. And that was very different. She was on the make. She was going for the 2016 Rio Olympics. And wo bahut hi alag tha. And she was a bit, like, why? Why do you want? I'm not going to give my story. And rightly so. Who am I? मैं bag उठा के आ गई कि मुझे बताइए. So I said, okay, fine. And I went back home, and wherever I was staying. And I said, अच्छा ठीक है, मैं तो सिर्फ मिलने आई. She said, क्या करोगी अब? मैंने कहा मैं वापस घर जाऊंगी. So she called me in the evening and said, do you want to just hang out? कल मेरा छुट्टी है, तो तुम आओगी क्या? I can't tell you. I was like, this is what I want. I don't want a story, because for various reasons. One is looking at many, many athletes and an idea more than a person. So spending time in that way with somebody who's on a very different journey was also quite something. We are at Charminar and Golconda and all that, but it was, that was, I think, very valuable. Also attending a sports felicitation program. One understands what is the journey. When Sania Mirza enters the room, what happens? So that kind of, I stayed at that level. And then when we were putting together the play, finally during the when the pandemic hit, just before that, I spoke to Shanti because I wanted her engagement, and I knew that she was also, we became friends at that point. So I asked her, will you train our choreographer? And she said yes. And so me and Maithili, we went for a couple of days. We went to the stadium there. Every day we would go. And one day Shanti says, oh, what are you doing? Why are you sitting here taking notes? Bhago. And so every day I was kind of made to run at least one round. My lungs were in my mouth. But yeah, so I think all of this, one had to now see, research is done so that you can trigger your imagination. You can, you have everything. And now how can a fictional character be created which can contain the ideas that you are engaging with? So, yeah, did I answer you asking about Pariyar also, right?
Yeah, but have you always been were you a sports fan before this or not really?
Not at all. So
that's what I'm interested in. How come this triggered it? It was a woman's story, that a woman and the body. So there's a great line which will be embarrassed, but I'm going to read it out. अगर मेरे शरीर को साइंस और समाज दोनों समझा ना पाए तो क्या मैं हूँ ही नहीं. So it basically means if science and society cannot explain my body, then doesn't mean I do not exist. And this is a very central question when it comes up to cases of athletes like Duti, like Shanti. There's a case on Pinky Pramanik, athletes who are seen as intersex. And that issue has just completely escalated over the last 2 decades. It's been talked about much more openly and with at least a little semblance of justice than there was before. And Duti's case is very, very unusual because for the first time there was institutional support behind her of the government, and that's how the case went. And it's just a fluke. If they had somebody else in charge of the Sports Authority of India, it would not have happened. So you were drawn to the fact that these are women who are being told they are not women. That was the story that interested you. And what did you make of athletes when you met them? Tell everyone the secret.
So I guess, like many of us in the room, I used to play. There was a time when I was outdoors and playing with my brother, and I remember distinctly a time when that stopped. I wasn't particularly told ki bahar mat jao, but it just happened. And I became very aware actually of that while going through the journey of this play. And of course, then one figured out, acha, yahan freedom nahi hai, to kahan hai? And you find your own ways, I guess. But that's my, I have no such other associations with sport. I can't figure out why people are running behind a ball. So, but yes, as you said, the human story is very much there. But I also feel the understanding of society is something that I was interested in through an experience like this, where you are really looking at such intersectionality. You're looking at science, you're looking at culture, you're looking at media, you're looking at all of those things coming together, and at the core of it is just a simple person who wants to smile, you know, who wants to do what they want to do. So I was interested in that simplicity with that complexity, I guess. And
the story of the Parai now.
Parai. So, the thought about her being Dalit and came from the fact that everybody who I met, and as I was reading even Caste Semenya when I read about, they came from backgrounds of extreme underprivilege, and one was seeing patterns there. Ki kaise, it also, you know, sports also provide a way to escape the usual ladder, which you don't have the privilege for, which you do, you know, education and so on. So this is one way, which is why they're so driven. And I thought, of course, moved by Shanti's experiences, but she and her families are not Parai players. So I don't know how that happened. I like music, and I was very actively looking at how do we root this in Tamil Nadu. What do we do? We have a protagonist, we have a particular background. What else can happen culturally? I think it was partly also a literary choice. But then I also was lucky to meet Adala Rasu, who's a wonderful folk artist and a friend now, who's a Parai player. And he said something really fantastic. He said, Sapan, what we are doing now with the Parai in the cultural movement is that we are reclaiming it. So our troops, our band.
Since it's central to Parai, and I do not know anything about what a Parai is, could you explain what is a Parai? Because I do not know the percussion.
Sure, yes, it's a percussion it's a percussion instrument made out of cow hide. Yeah.
It's
Played
like a
by,
duffly.
yeah, it's a largish duffly.
It's like a large,
You use two sticks to play it. Yeah. Yeah, but you wear it. You wear it like this.
Is it like a tambourine?
No, it's bigger.
No,
And there's no
I think it's
chan-chan.
bigger.
Both sides?
No, one side, one side.
One side.
Is it a drum?
It's a one-side thing, and you wear it, and you play it like this. And it has very strong associations with caste. तो सिर्फ कुछ लोअर कास्ट के लोग ही परई बजाते हैं और सिर्फ फ्यूनरल्स पे बजता है, ऐसा over time होने लगा. I don't think that was the case. In fact, when Shanta, who's written the foreword, wrote about this, that's when I also realized, अच्छा, चोला पीरियड में भी बजता था, फेस्टिवल्स को के इन्विटेशन में बजता था. So it had a very open space in society. And then slowly it became about the cow. And yeah, so that's...
So what Sapan is saying about the athletes coming from coming from underprivileged backgrounds, it's a common theme that runs through Indian sport. Also, the ruling against I'm absolutely doing sports nerdiness here, but you have to listen. The ruling against this, the kind of, who was seen as having more testosterone, it was high testosterone, to simply explain it. It said this is found mostly almost like saying that the ruling, if you go and look at it on Google, you find it's astonishingly racist, because it said it's found, I'm sure you've read it, it's found in communities where there are less, in either parts of Africa or Asia, and it literally, and you're looking at it and say, do you know what you're saying? Can you not understand what you're saying out there? Where there is no access to good medical facilities. And so it goes on and on and on. And just like, and fortunately that got thrown out. It's not that the situation has been solved in any way by the Dutti case. It's still in a bit of a...
Yeah, just about this. So one was interested in... So gender testing as an idea, people know, they talk about, there are films on it now, but I was also interested in the history of a gender test. And so that's when one realized, acha, pehle, there was, so all women athletes had to undergo, there was a time when all women athletes had to undergo a gender test. And then there came a time, and you were, what is known as a naked parade used to happen, and in front of a bunch of, I'm sure, male doctors and so on. And then it changed to, there was something called a certificate of femininity which was introduced. And so you're a certified female, somebody tells you that. And then it moved to chromosome testing. When Duty was being tested, it became hyperandrogenism test. And then slightly more sophisticated name, differences in sex disorder is what it is currently. And caste semenya was disallowed to run and has been asked, this is the latest, right? She's been asked not to compete, or if she's going to compete, then she has to artificially reduce her levels. Which means you're being asked to, you know, on one hand you're being told doping nahi karna hai, doping test hoga. On one hand you're being artificially asked to induce drugs. So it's quite complicated and just about...
Yeah, what has also happened is that they've said now it doesn't apply to anybody, this kind of test, but whoever looks kind of off, we will pick on them and we will say, okay, it's your turn to get tested.
Yeah, it's purely based on looks.
Purely based on...
Which are biased.
Appearance,
which is about... if you don't fit the stereotype image of a white, pretty athlete, and you can add to that, then you're winning, and you have nothing else going for you, then you can be asked for a gender test. So that's where it...
The most outstanding and astonishing at the same time, because she's saying I'm not interested in sports, part of the play, is that how detailed it is about the entire life story of, say, someone like Shanti, someone like Duti, and bits of P.T. Usha and what she stood for as well. And there's a scene there which is called panel discussion, which you have to, it's absolutely brilliant because it actually sounds like a panel discussion on TV, except it's the other way around, that it's the good guys that are standing up and being heard. Whereas the current panel discussions are not exactly like that. The songs that you wrote about P.T. Usha that are there in the what is the sense that you got of the kind of figure that she is? What is the sense of,
Yeah, I think she's a huge icon, especially for women from underprivileged backgrounds. She's a huge icon. And she was for me when I was growing up. So it just came together, that idea. And one felt like a celebration of that idea, what she stood for was important. So that's why the poem.
Songs. There
could be songs.
Could be songs, yeah. I was reading them as songs. So the story of Ottam sort of has two separate endings. I mean, is that a normal thing that's done in theatre? Is it a normal... So like I said, I'm not an expert, so I'm just asking you the absolute amateur question. Or is it... I mean, they're both great as they are, but...
Yeah, I think...
No spoilers, but...
Yeah. What happens in the end is... So what is the end of such a story? One kind of came to a point where we said, okay, what is the end? One aspect that I've looked at in the play, for instance, is that I want... Instead of looking at a gender identity which kind of multiplies into 2 bodies or 3 bodies, I wanted to look at the spirit of the person. So there are 2 characters. One becomes like the spirit, the alter ego, the other side of the person. And so I think it felt like there is one end which is the experiential athlete's end, but I also feel there is an end which is which has more hope, which talks about the unfairness of what is happening and questions it and takes it ahead as an idea for women, for yeah, other genders.
So I was just trying to think whether there'd ever been plays about sport or I'll ask all the theatre doyens and gurus here whether there've been plays about Indian sport at all. I mean, nothing just strikes me. I would have. I don't know. Has there been? I'm just stunned. I mean, I'm just really astonished at how powerful Ottam is, and how at the same time it's sending you a loud and important message, but it's done with such sensitivity. That is what is the most fantastic part of it. And I'm telling you that after you see it or read the play or whatever it is, I'm actually understating everything at this point. So what is, you know, just I think very quickly, in a conference like, in an event like Gender Bender, where are we at this discussion of binaries, gender? Has sport sort of actually put it more out there and made it more visible for people to talk about it, to understand it? I mean, sport is full of very, very conservative people, very, very hidebound and very, very sort of kattar is the only word that comes to mind at the moment. So, you know, so have we moved ahead? Is it going to be a better chance for somebody down the line, you know?
Yeah, I mean, who am I to say? But I think Duti Chand, you know, openly coming out about her relationship, her sexuality, I think was a very big step. And so I think, yes, it matters. These conversations matter, no matter if they're in a room with 25 people. I think it's important that we have more and more such conversations or such plays or such stories. As you said, the atmosphere at SAI and all these other spaces that I visited is extremely feudal, problematic. The lawyers don't understand anything. Oh, kabhi bhi he bolte, kabhi bhi she bolte, kabhi bhi. You know, it is so problematic. Yeah. So I don't know how at grassroots level how this can go. So I also sometimes worry and feel that, you know, एक circle में conversation होती है, but I think mainstream conversations भी इसलिए ज़रूरी हैं. So that's why the Duty Chand Act is, I think, very important.
Can we have some questions? And then we'll leave the stage to the actors.
Sure.
Hi. I was just curious about whether, is it Shanti or Shanta? Shanti and Duti, whether they have read the play and what reaction they had to it.
Duti, definitely not. She was in a very different space at that time. Shanti, we tried very hard to keep her involved. And in fact, she was going to come for the opening. I bought tickets for her. She was going to come. And that's when I realized, so she kept saying, yeah, I'm coming, and everything's final. And I just had this feeling that she won't come. It wasn't, I don't know whether it was for the opening or what, some dates before she had to come, right? Yeah, so, she was part of the show. Yeah, and will. And then she sent me a photograph saying, "Arey, unhone mujhe rok liya hai," yeah, I was unwell, and she sent a photograph of something written, and I just had in that moment I felt that it's not that easy, you know. As much as we might want this to be inclusive and all of that, the grassroots reality is very different. I've explained, of course, everything to her. I've spoken about it, but she's not going to sit for a reading, you see. But what we did was, when we went there, I was very uncomfortable कि हम अपना काम कर रहे हैं. And she doesn't know what is it for. She might not come for it. Even at that point, one was aware of that. So I remember we were at the stadium and raat ho rahi thi, and I said, you know what, we want to show you what we do. And all the athletes sat down, and Maithili did a contemporary dance thing for a session for them, in the sense that this is what we do. Because by then they had no idea that, okay, we are running. Uske baad aap kya karoge? Natak matlab kya? So at that level, one has tried to do what one could, but it is difficult, I think. I mean, I can just stay in touch. Like Adal, I'm in touch with. He's much more open, but he's had a different journey. So it is difficult for Shanti each time, I think. And I think every time somebody does something on your life, it is also a reminder. So I also choose to then give that space, there's only so much one can do.
What she's saying about grassroots is very interesting because Shanti has got a job as a coach. She's a proper certified coach. She's working there. And she's got one of her colleagues who keeps casting accusations against her, running magazine articles against her. And it goes on that, oh, she's harassing, she's picking on little kids, she's like a predator. You know, so it's still going on. It's still going on in her life. Any other questions?
मेरा क्वेश्चन आप दोनों से, अब जैसे आपने बताया कि इसमें जो है हाइपर एंड्रो की मात्रा ज़्यादा थी, मतलब इनमें
टेस्टोस्टेरोन.
हाँ टेस्टोस्टेरोन. तो अब जैसे इनकी किताब में भी लिखा हुआ है, जो द्वितीय जन्म पे किताब लिखी है, कि जैसे सहवाग का आई क्या बोलते हैं उसे, कंसंट्रेशन बहुत अच्छा था, ठीक है, किसी के हाथ लंबे हैं, किसी के पैर लंबे हैं.
हाँ. तो
आपको इसका वे आउट क्या लगता है, मतलब बस स्पोर्ट्स के फील्ड में बताइए.
मैं कह दूं, जो एथलेटिक्स फेडरेशन से पूछा गया कि साइंस क्या प्रूव कर सकता है कि आपके बॉडी में अगर एक्स लेवल ऑफ टेस्टोस्टेरोन ज़्यादा है तो आपकी परफॉर्मेंस अच्छी है, आप हमको प्रूव करके दिखाइए. वो प्रूफ अभी तक उनको मिला नहीं है. हाँ, तो दैट्स व्हाट द थिंग इज. अगर आई एग्री, आई थिंक गिव अस द प्रूफ, वी विल बिलीव इट. सो यू हैव टू हैव प्रूफ दैट देयर इज अ एडवांटेज. क्योंकि ये नहीं है कि दूती चंद या कैस्टर सेवेन्या उनका परफॉर्मेंस विमेन से 10% 15% ज़्यादा है. द डिफरेंस बिटवीन मेल एंड फीमेल एथलेटिक परफॉर्मेंस, सॉरी निमी, आई विल बी फिनिश्ड इन 2 seconds, इज बिटवीन 9 and 12%. दैट इज अ डिफरेंस अगर आप क्वान्टिफाई करें उसको. तो ये जो एथलीट्स परफॉर्म करते हैं, दे आर नॉट परफॉर्मिंग एट द रेट एट विच मेल एथलीट्स आर परफॉर्मिंग. सो आप गिव अस द साइंटिफिक प्रूफ एंड देन आई से देन वी कैन हैव द नेक्स्ट. हम अगला कदम ले सकते हैं.
I mean, if I can just add to that conversation, there's also, I think, the presumption that sports has to be broken and has always been broken on the grounds of male-female gender, which is not true, right? Historically, there were many sports where women and men did not perform like you were in you competed against each other. There were some sports that weren't. And
Very few, but there were.
You had,
Yeah.
and then even sports which are brain
Equestrian.
games. No, some table tennis and stuff. I think there was a history somewhere that I was reading, but
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
clear.
mixed,
Yeah,
that's mixed, like a mixed competition that you can have, men and women.
And then even brain sports like chess are divided, right? So there's also, I'm just saying, for me, the play throws up interesting things where the assumption that you have to divide on lines of gender is also one of the things which is, I think, in general coming up. Sorry, this is not a question. I'm just contributing to the conversation.
Yes.
So I think that's a very interesting challenge to sport, because sport has never imagined itself separately. It has really imagined itself in the binary. And here you're saying you can't think so easily in the binary.
But anything to do with power, anything to do with strength, anything to do with muscle, heart capacity or whatever, that's the difference that they usually use, like a biological difference in that sense. Complicated, but yeah, sorry.
दृश्य 5. परंबू नदी का किनारा. अप्पा अकई को परई बजाना सिखा रहे हैं. वो बिना किसी रुचि या उत्साह के बजाती है. अप्पा नशे में है और पूरे दृश्य में पीते रहते हैं. इस दृश्य के अधिकतर संवाद तमिल में हो सकते हैं.
आदि कुची इद सुंदर कुची इद परई कड़ई इरकई मक्कर.
इद आदि कुची इद सुंदर कुची इद परई कड़ई इरकई मक्कर.
इद आदि कुची इद सुंदर कुची इद परई कड़ई इरकई मक्कर. चल ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु
ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु.
अब पैरों के साथ ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु मूड़ ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु ता
कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु ता कुकु ता.
अप्पा की आंख लग जाती है. अप्पा को सोता देख अकई मस्ती करने लगती है, कलाबाजी करती है, कूदती नाचती है. तभी अचानक
नहीं सीखना नहीं तो क्या करेगी?
कुछ और.
जैसे क्या?
वो तो नहीं सोचा।
पर ये नहीं करना।
ले,
अभी तू जो कर रही थी उसमें मजा आ रहा था। सेरी सेरी, उसमें और परई के नाच में क्या फर्क है?
परे का नाच इतना धीमा होता है अप्पा। इतने देर में तुम्हें नदी के इस पार से उस पार तक दौड़ लगा जा।
सेरी सेरी, चल ला, मैं बजाता हूं।
क्या?
जब तक मैं बजाऊंगा तब तक तू नदी पार कर। जितनी तेज ताल बजेगी उतनी तेज दौड़ना होगा।
सच में भागो?
ठीक?
नदी में?
चल दौड़।
अप्पा परंबू, डूब गई तो?
नदी में भागने वाले डूब सकते हैं। हार गई।
ले,
अकई नदी की ओर देखती है, लंबी सांस भर के दौड़ना शुरू करती है। अप्पा पूरी एकाग्रता के साथ परई बजाता है। नदी के बीच पानी का प्रवाह तेज है, जिसे देख अप्पा घबरा जाता है।
अरे वापस आजा अकई।
ये देख कि अकई तेजी से किनारे की तरफ बढ़ती जा रही है, अप्पा को पहले अविश्वास होता है, फिर साहस मिलता है। वो अकई की ताल में ताल मिलाकर गर्व से परई बजाता है। दृश्य 6। अकई नदी के किनारे एक पत्थर पर बैठी है। पत्थर के पीछे से अचानक नवी उछलकर प्रकट होती है।
तुम कौन हो?
नवी।
मैं अकई। यहाँ क्या कर रही हो?
नवी कभी जवाब देती है, कभी सिर्फ मुस्कुरा देती है।
अकई का मतलब है फूल का उगना। नव्वी का मतलब?
हिरन का बच्चा।
ओ, ये क्या है? मैं देखूं? रुम्बा नल्ला रखे। क्या सुंदर साड़ी है। किसके लिए? अम्मा के लिए। मैं भी अम्मा के लिए ऐसी साड़ी खरीदूंगी।
नहीं।
क्यों नहीं? क्या नहीं?
पैसे नहीं है तुम्हारे पास।
तो आ जाएंगे। मैं बहुत कुछ करूंगी, देखना।
नहीं।
क्यों नहीं?
क्योंकि तुम आलसी हो।
कौन बोला?
मैं बोली।
मैं आलसी हूँ?
हाँ।
सुबह 4 बजे उठती हूँ।
तो आधी दुनिया उठती है, तुम्हारे घर में सभी उठते हैं।
तो क्या उठ के सुबह सुबह यहाँ परंबू पर अप्पा के साथ परई बजाती हूँ। फिर अम्मा के साथ मजदूरी पर जाती हूँ, फिर स्कूल में जाती हूँ, क्लासरूम में संडास धोना मेरा ही तो काम है।
तुम वो बहुत कुछ करती हो जो तुम्हारी जैसी हजारों लड़कियां करती हैं। अलग क्या करती हो?
दौड़ती हूँ।
दिन में कितने घंटे?
क्या?
दिन में कितने घंटे हैं?
24।
और कितने घंटे दौड़ती हो?
2 घंटे सुबह, 2 घंटे शाम।
24 घंटों में से 4 घंटे वो करती हो जो तुम्हें दूसरों से अलग बनाता है, और 20 घंटे वो जो सब करते हैं। तो अलग कैसे हुई?
मेरी दोस्त बनोगी?
नवी उठकर जाने लगती है।
क्या?
जब तुम 20 घंटे दौड़ोगी तब।
सनकी हो क्या?
चलती हूँ।
हाँ, जाओ जाओ। मैं परई वाले की लड़की हूँ ना, मुझसे क्यों दोस्ती करोगे तुम?
अच्छी कोशिश थी।
ठीक है, जाओ।
जा रही हूँ।
हाँ, चली जाओ।
चली गई।
नहीं करनी दोस्ती।
दृश्य 9। अकई मंच पर अकेली है।
क्या देख रही हो? कुछ नहीं, अपनी छाती। हंसी क्यों?
छाती है कहाँ दिखाने को?
जया की 26 है, ज्योति की 27.5, मेरी 25।
कभी किसी लड़के ने छुआ?
अम्मा कहती है हम कोरी इडली खाते हैं ना, इसलिए मेरी छाती नहीं फूली। सांबर से
फूलती है?
हाँ सच। तूर दाल 80 रुपए किलो, इमली पाव किलो 20 रुपया, फिर प्याज मसाले
कड़ी पत्ता,
हाँ,
राई,
हाँ,
और वो टमाटर,
हाँ, सब्जियां, सांबर महंगी दाल होती है। तुम क्या खा रही हो?
पोंगल।
कैसा है?
रुम्बा नल्ले इरुके। खाओगी?
नहीं। आज अप्पा ने खूब भगाया, परम्बू के पास ले गए, 3 घंटे तक परई बजाई और भगाते रहे। पहले सूखी मिट्टी में, फिर गीली। लेकिन जब मैं गीली मिट्टी में भाग रही थी तो मुझे लगा जैसे मेरे पैर धंसने के बजाय और जोर जोर से बाहर को निकल रहे हैं।
पीटी उषा बनोगी क्या?
वो कौन है?
अरे फ्यूरी एक्सप्रेस को नहीं जानती हो?
ट्रेन है क्या?
भारत की सबसे तेज भागने वाली औरत, वो भी एक छोटे से गांव से थी। फिर क्या?
गांव से कहाँ गई?
तू चलेगी?
कहाँ?
शहर।
वेल मुझे अम्मा के पास रहना है।
तो तुम बैठो, मैं चली जाती हूँ।
तुम हमेशा धमकी क्यों देती रहती हो? तुम मुझे जबरदस्ती नहीं ले जा सकती। हाँ
तुम आओगी?
मैं नहीं आऊंगी। हर बार तुम्हारी बात नहीं मानी जाएगी। वो पोन्नी का क्या होगा? मैं उसकी सबसे अच्छी दोस्त हूँ।
सब अपना अपना देख लेंगे।
कहाँ जाएंगे ये तो बता दो।
चेन्नई पहले, बाद में पूरी दुनिया।
तो अब मैं क्या करूं?
छाती मापो।
दृश्य 21। कोच गगनदीप और अकई मंच पर हैं। अकई सिर झुकाकर बैठी है। नवी का प्रवेश।
सॉरी सर।
क्यों सॉरी?
नहीं कर पाई।
तुम्हें पता है तुम्हारा टाइमिंग पूरे 1 सेकंड पीछे थी तुम अपने हीट के बेस्ट रिकॉर्ड से। क्या हुआ वहां?
अकई,
चुप!
अकई, सर बहुत।
जो भी बात है 2 मिनट रुक सकती है। जवाब दो, क्या हुआ?
सर थोड़ा डिस्ट्रैक्ट हुई शायद।
जब स्टार्टिंग लाइन पर खड़ी थी तो क्या दिख रहा था?
सर
क्या दिख रहा था?
साइड के रनर के बारे में सोच रही थी सर। वो रशियन लड़की।
और
शॉर्ट सर, बहुत शॉर्ट थे, तबीयत भी ठीक नहीं थी।
और
कुछ नहीं दिख रहा था सर।
व्हाट डू यू मीन कुछ नहीं दिख रहा था? आंखें बंद थी क्या?
नहीं सर।
तो क्या देखा?
सामने देख रही थी सर। आगे फील्ड था।
फील्ड? अपने आप को जीतते हुए देखा था? देखा था? लाइफ में कोई पेन, कोई दर्द है?
सर
क्या सर? हारने का ऑप्शन है तेरे पास? स्टार्टिंग लाइन पर खड़े होकर आगे फील्ड दिखनी चाहिए थी या जिंदगी का डायग्राम? रेस नहीं है तेरे लिए। लाइफ की हर गलत को सही करने का एक मौका था, कैसे गवा दिया? कहां से है तू? कहां से है?
तिरची से सर।
तिरची गांव से। क्या जात है?
परियर सर।
परियर? तेरा छुआ भी नहीं खाते लोग। शक्ल देखी है अपनी?
सर
कितने रिश्ते आए तेरी शादी के लिए?
नहीं आए।
नहीं
कितने लोगों का संडास होया है तूने?
क्यों बोल रहा है?
अम्मा के पास कितनी साड़ियां हैं? अरे बाप क्या करता है?
परई
पराई ही बजानी है जिंदगी भर।
अकई तेरे घर से फोन था, तेरे अप्पा नहीं रहे।
दृश्य 22। पूरा दृश्य सन्नाटे में खेला जाता है। अकई के हाव भाव बिल्कुल अलग हैं। ऐसा लगता है मानो उसके अंदर कोई बड़ा परिवर्तन हो रहा है। आंसुओं और विलाप की जगह मानो दृढ़ निश्चय ने ले ली है। एक कोने में नवी अकेली बैठी है। बचपन के दोस्त शक्ति का प्रवेश।
कैसे? शक्ति
रात को घर आए तो ठीक थे। चित्ती बोली खाना खाया, दारू पी और सो गए रोज की तरह। फिर एकदम से आधी रात को उठे, बोले सीना दुख रहा है और परई बजाने लगे। बजाते बजाते ही
अकई पिता की परई के पास जाती है और उसे स्नेह से छूती है।
अकई पिन्नामल तेरू वाले गाउंडर अपने खेत से शरीर को ले जाने नहीं दे रहे।
क्यों नहीं
दाग
जाने दे
कैसे
रहे?
होगा?
क्यों नहीं जाने दे रहे?
हमारे छूने से अशुद्धि हो जाएगी। 15 साले।
वही एक रास्ता है।
मेड़ वाले रास्ते में पानी भरा है।
तो फिर
अलगेसन की लाश की तरह।
मतलब
पुल के ऊपर से परंबू में डाल सकते हैं, वरना लाश सड़ जाएगी।
चलो पुल पर।
शक्ति बाकियों को इकट्ठा करने में लग जाता है। अकई नवी के पास जाती है।
चलो। खड़ी हो।
पहले इस परई को फेंको।
अप्पा दुनिया भर की मौत पर बजाते रहे, उनकी मौत पर मैं परई बजाऊंगी।
इसी के कारण मैं रेस हारी हूं। इसे फेंकना ही होगा।
मैं बजाऊंगी।
जब तक इसे अपने से अलग नहीं करोगी, आगे नहीं बढ़ पाओगी। ये सिर्फ एक परई नहीं है, हमारी जात का धब्बा है। इसको मिटाना ही होगा।
अप्पा ने कहा था या तो तू अपनी किस्मत को रो ले या उसे इसकी ताल पर नचा ले। जब तक मेरे पैर नहीं हारते तब तक तुम नहीं हार सकती। அந்த ஓட்டம் வாழ்க்கையங்க தாதிகளே 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 தாதிகளே
Thank you. I'll just quickly introduce them. Prajesh, Kalyani, Prerna, and Sian. Thank you, guys.
We have some copies of the book outside for sale if you would like to purchase them and get them signed by the author. We also have the performance Be Loved at 7 o'clock in the auditorium, so do join us.
And thank you, Sharda. Thank you so much.